What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. As you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about someone that I served prison time with that has life without the possibility of parole. And man, the details of her case are sus, to say the least. So I'm willing to bet if you have found the prison community or true crime space, you have wondered how lifers serve their time in prison. Do they talk about being guilty? Do they talk about being innocent? Do other inmates believe them if and when they say they're innocent? And why does a murder charge get you respect in prison? I'm going to try to answer all of those questions for you guys, and I'm also going to share with you the cases of women that are serving life without the possibility of parole sentences. And we're starting today in Arkansas with a woman that I was locked up with and spent quite a bit of time with her. She actually taught a class that I was in. So if you're new here, hi, my name is Jess. I'm a person in long-term recovery who has in fact been to prison. If you want to follow me on any other social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, that's $2. It's only ever going to be $2. All of that is linked down below, as well as my vlog channel and my Facebook. But we have a lot to cover today, so let's just kick this thing off. So the woman that we're going to be talking about today is a Miss Carolyn Arnett, and she is serving a life without the possibility of parole sentence and fleeing apprehension, which obviously doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So Carolyn Arnett was dating this man named Edward Ferguson, and when you look at his picture, it's like, whew, girl, red flags. Not to judge, he just seems a little intimidating from his picture, you know what I mean? So Carolyn was born August 18th of 1975. Her boyfriend Edward was born September 13th of 1972, so he was just a few years older than her. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a ton of information on Carolyn before she went to prison. I couldn't really find a lot of backstory on her family or her relationship with Edward, but because she appealed her case, I was able to find out a whole bunch of stuff online. The appeal is going to give case law, like tons of it. So the person appealing their charge will say, hey, you need to let me out based on this case law and that case law and this law over here, and this was where they messed up, and here's my evidence. The state will come back and say, nah, no, here's a case law that trumps that case law, and we're just gonna dismiss that because no, and your appeal is denied, which is essentially what happened in Carolyn's case, but we'll get there. So let me set the scene for you. It is October 4th of 1997. They have, rent due, car payments due, and it is like, we need to pay our bills o'clock. Allegedly, the story goes that she was putting pressure on him to go rob somebody so that she could pay her bills and so that they would be okay. That is obviously not the best decision to make. You know what I mean? Phone a friend, be like, hey, I'm gonna go rob some people. Do you think it's a good idea? You know what I mean? Like, have one of those friends on standby that can be like, no, pick a different direction. You need Jesus. These two lovebirds are out and about in the morning of October 4th, 1997, and they go into a car sales shop, and that is where they meet victim number 1. Yep, because it was not just one victim, it was 2. So G.I. Higgins was their first victim. Ferguson goes into Higgins' place of work, car sales place, and he takes his wallet, shoots him, and leaves. So I'm unclear on the details. I'm not sure if they both entered this car sales place or if it was just him. Maybe she was waiting in the car. Unclear on that detail, but we know for sure that Ferguson went into this shop, shot this man, took his wallet, and bounced. And they very quickly realized that, oh, okay, there's no money in this wallet. We just shot someone for no reason, not even $1. So in court transcripts and the appeals and everything that I have read on the case, Ferguson argues that Arnett said, well, you done killed one person over nothing. You didn't even get anything. You might as well go help me rob this other guy. Desperate times will make people do the craziest things, and I can't even tell you how many times I have either been locked up with someone or I've heard someone's story where it was a robbery gone wrong, they really needed the money, So allegedly, Carolyn has another plan to make some money. She knows this guy named Danny. So she goes, hey boo, I know this guy, definitely just got paid, has cash on him, we can rob him and then we're good. All good in the hood. We can pay the bills and we can move on about our lives. Carolyn lures Danny to a secluded area, and it's very obvious that they knew each other, but Danny had said something kind of shitty to her, and it was basically soliciting her for sex and said, hey, I'll pay you if you have sex with me. So Carolyn's plan was to get in the back of his van. They were gonna do the dirty. He was gonna pay her. That was what he believed. That's what Danny believed. It's getting kind of sketchy, right? But the plan was that her boyfriend, Edward, being, really close by, he would come in, stop it, we're good to go. That is essentially what happened. That plan didn't work very well either, because this is victim number 2. Definitely premeditated, because we've already talked about robbing someone again and the last dude didn't make it, right? And that's why we don't talk about our plans for the day, because the words like premeditated gets thrown around, you know what I mean? A courtroom. And then, whew. The craziest thing about this is victim number 2 also did not have $1 in his wallet. Not a single one. Now, 2 men are dead for absolutely no reason. Not that money would be a reason. Not that if they found a bunch of money, it's like, yay, it was for a reason. No, but like, you murdered these people when they had nothing to give you at all. You wanted their money. They didn't even have anything to take. That's a hard pill to swallow in terms of, you know, the victim's family. Like, they were killed for what? Just no reason at all. They didn't even have anything to give them, and they were murdered. So now Danny is shot in the back of this van, and we have to get rid of this van because, oh my God, right? So Carolyn gets in her vehicle and Edward gets in the van, Danny's van, and they move the van to a more secluded location in Paragould, Arkansas. And I have absolutely no idea where that is, but maybe I'll show you a thing on the map. Then our 2 lovebirds go back to their apartment and they start destroying evidence. They start burning wallets. I'm assuming they started burning clothes too. I mean, they really just want to get rid of all of the evidence because, holy crap, we just killed 2 people.
So just chill out. You know, drink a 7-Up. Eat a moon pie. Quit murdering people.
So it wasn't until February 14th of 1998 that Eddie here gets arrested, but he gets arrested for something completely unrelated, just like this random theft. And he escapes. Like, dang, bro. I feel like that's kind of a whole red flag. Like, why are you trying to escape on like the tiniest charge? But there is impending doom. So Carolyn is in Missouri, and this is where things get kind of weird when it comes to the law and how everything went down and how sketchy Arkansas can be when it comes to things like search warrants, arrest warrants, violating people's rights. I don't know, we'll get there. From reading the appeal, I'm going to assume that she was brought in for questioning. So on February 19th of 1998, just a few days after old Eddie here escapes on theft, Carolyn is spotted at a payphone in Missouri. So the cops bring her in, I'm assuming for questioning because there is not a warrant for her arrest at this time. The second the cops bring her in, she is just like, she's just talking away. She's given 4 different statements. She is taking them to the scene of the crime. She's telling them, hey, my boyfriend's on the run. He escaped, he's in this hotel. Girl. She gets brought in on a Friday evening, and between Friday and Saturday, she would give 4 statements to law enforcement. So what I believe happened is she was interrogated from Friday, half of that day, through the night, who even knows, and then all day the next day. And because of that, she would, you know, give 4 statements to law enforcement. And those statement times were 5:30 on Friday, 8:30 on Friday, 12:35 a.m. on Saturday, and then 7:45 p.m. on Saturday. Carolyn would go on to try to get these statements suppressed from evidence, and justifiably so. She argues that she didn't know she was under arrest, she was not Mirandized, she didn't have a lawyer present, and they failed to get her in front of a judge, and all of that stuff, because if you're arrested on Friday in Arkansas, you're not gonna get in front of a judge until Monday. So throughout this weekend, whatever happened, whatever, you know, coercion that the cops put on her, whatever pressure they put on her, doesn't really matter. You know, cops can lie to you and they can pressure you and they can keep you in interrogation. That's why we shut the fuck up when cops ask questions. What she should have done here is given the Pot Brothers at Law 25-word script. The 25-word script is really easy. If you are stopped by law enforcement, why are you pulling me over? I'm not discussing my day. When they start asking you questions, am I being detained or am I free to go? And then you politely invoke your 5th Amendment right and you shut the fuck up. Okay, moving on. I really do believe Carolyn when she says in the appeal that she didn't know she was under arrest. You know, no one Mirandized her, told her she was under arrest. She was not put in front of a judge. She didn't have a lawyer present, none of that. But you have to invoke those rights. You have to say, I want a lawyer. You know, you have to say those things. I invoke the 5th. I'm not discussing anything without a lawyer present. Because if you don't, you wander down this really bad path. You know, even if she planned to murder these men or not, the statements aren't very good. So she not only made these statements to law enforcement, 4 different statements, Friday and Saturday, which sounds like a very long and grueling interrogation. She would even take it a step further and she took law enforcement to the scene of the crime. So where Danny was murdered, she took law enforcement there. She admitted to helping Eddie destroy evidence like the wallet and all of that stuff. You know, she kind of just gave it all to them, handed it to them, and said, this is what happened. To back up here a little bit, on February 19th of 1998, remember old Eddie broke out on the theft charge? Well, Carolyn says to law enforcement, I know where he is, he's at this hotel. Boom. So now they arrest him and they're both there. It is not uncommon for law enforcement to keep you in interrogation and coerce you into making a false confession. So whether or not she knew or planned out these murders, you know, we'll never know. And even if she was putting pressure on old Eddie to rob people, he acted in his own accord, right? So the fact of it is they took 2 innocent lives. The fact of it is, you know, Carolyn was at least, you know, very active in the murder of Danny Rogers, where, you know, she follows her boyfriend to help, you know, get the van in a secluded area. She helps him destroy evidence, and months go by. Months go by. She doesn't voluntarily go in and say, hey, this is what's going on. My boyfriend killed these people. I've been under duress and I finally escaped. Her entire defense was that Arkansas failed to read her rights, put her under arrest, give her a lawyer, arraign her in front of a judge, and all of that probably spot on. They probably did keep her in interrogation with the heat blasting, and she's uncomfortable and she's tired, and they do that. People are convicted on false confessions all the time. It's happened a lot. These statements probably should have been suppressed. Unfortunately though, those statements were not suppressed. Her appeal was denied. And from reading everything, it would be very, very difficult to convince a jury of 12 that she was under duress, that her boyfriend did this, she was afraid for her life, afraid of him, which is probably true. Probably true. She's a victim of domestic violence, and she was so afraid of him that she couldn't tell law enforcement, you know, what happened. That could be 100% true. It could be 100% true. But it is so hard to convince a jury of 12 after you've already taken cops to the scene. You said you destroyed evidence. This happened back in October. It is now February, the end of February, and you have not, you know, tried to report this to law enforcement. It's hard to prove that you were under duress, right? Now, I never talked to Carolyn about the details of her case. The only thing that she would really say, and she taught a class that I was in, the only thing that she would really say is, I have a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and I never pulled a trigger. Be careful who you're with, who you date, who you hang around, because I'm never gonna get out of here, and I didn't actually take a life. So the only evidence from looking at everything from, you know, my research, and maybe I'm wrong here, but the only evidence is her statements that she couldn't suppress, that she didn't have counsel for, and then old Eddie saying, yep, she wanted me to do it. So that's really the only evidence that I can find when I do research on this case. And like, not for nothing, it is not what the state knows. They have to prove it. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she acted with intent to take someone else's life. And based on the statements that she made, and based on his testimony, 12 jurors convicted her of capital murder and gave her life without the possibility of parole because it looks that way. You know what I mean? Because of the statements, because of what she said. Because after those statements were made, and after she takes law enforcement to the scene of the crime, months after it happened, it was probably almost impossible to prove that she was under duress. And that was back in 1998, when people really didn't have a deep understanding of the cycle of domestic violence and the fear that survivors of domestic violence have, you know? The fact of it is, only those two know the, you know, dynamic between their relationship. Only they know the truth. And anything else is speculation. I think it's important to note here that not only was Carolyn 22 years old, obviously made some bad decisions along the way, right? But I think it's also important to note that she filed a lawsuit against the state of Arkansas because she is a sexual abuse victim. The chaplain at the prison that she is currently at, well, he went to prison, but the chaplain that was running the program that I was in, I've met both of these people, he was charged, sentenced, and convicted for sexual assault against four or five women at the McPherson prison, and Carolyn is one of them. And she has a pending lawsuit against the state of Arkansas for that. I think it's important to mention because I have no reason to doubt that she is a survivor of domestic violence. I believe her. I'm saying that because all we do is re-traumatize victims. And man, obviously what she did was wrong, right? But no one deserves to be sexually assaulted or beaten or abused or harassed. So I spent about 4 months with her. She led a couple classes in a Christian program called Principles and Applications for Life, the PAL program. At that time, it was led by Kenneth DeWitt, now convicted sex offender. I spent about 4 months with Carolyn, maybe a little bit more, in pre-PAL and then PAL. I don't know if they still call it the same thing, but Carolyn kind of bounced around the compound. And I don't know if that makes sense. She has this very like, she walks with a purpose. She kind of bounces around, moving quick. And she has a very like at peace kind of energy, a very calming energy, an energy I will never obtain in my life. I am like an anxiety-ridden, caffeine-fueled raccoon of a person. So for someone to have life without, to have such a calming energy, such a peaceful and happy and energetic energy, I don't know how. I don't know how. The only explanation that I can give for that is that she has given her life over to God. She is a Christian and she has accepted the fact that she is where she is. Mentally, she hasn't put her eggs in the I'm gonna get out of prison basket, She has created a life for herself in there. She has helped more women than I could probably ever tell you just by sharing her story and leading classes and understanding and learning, with the Bible. I know that's very important to a lot of people. And she has helped a lot of women. Even in the, short conversations I would have with her, because I have a very short attention span, she would pick up on that and she would give me little pearls of wisdom, even if I didn't think about it right in that moment. And she likes to do that. She doesn't want to see women coming back to prison over and over again. And you can tell that she is very genuine and sincere in not wanting people to come back to prison. As crazy as it sounds to say that I enjoyed getting to know somebody under this type of scenario, I really did enjoy hearing little pieces of her story, and I was very grateful that she was so open and so willing to give me some little pearls along the way. She's also a model inmate, no disciplinaries, no infractions or anything like that, while old Eddie over here, not so much. He's got some contraband, which is like super common to have if you're in prison, and he also has trafficking and trading. Now, before I explain that charge to you in prison charge, the hall monitor wrote him up. Before I describe to you trafficking and trading, I want you to think for a second what you think that charge would be. No, they literally mean he gave like a soup, a ramen. Do you call it noodles or do you call it ramen? He literally probably just got caught giving a ramen noodle soup to somebody. It's not drugs, because if he had drugs, it would say drugs. Trafficking and trading is the most dramatic disciplinary for inmates that I've ever heard in my entire life. It means like, he's like, hey, here's a soup. The lawsuit that she has pending against the state of Arkansas, I'm pretty sure is not completed yet, but when they do come to some kind of settlement or agreement, I would be happy to make that video for you guys, and I hope she wins that lawsuit because no one deserves that. All right, you guys, I'm gonna end today's video here. As always, I love you. Stay safe, stay in recovery, whatever that looks like to you, because there's no wrong way to recover, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Bye, you guys.